You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk. And before we get going, I really need to apologize to you for the subpar audio quality for yesterday's show, and subpar seems generous. It was terrible. It was not up to my standards. Quite frankly, if it was just a show with the Trifecta, I wouldn't have posted it. But there was so much that happened over the weekend that I felt like I had to post something. It really wasn't up to my standards. I hold myself to a very high standard, and I don't think I lived up to it yesterday. But the one thing I'll say is I played around with some settings on my camera. One thing that I forgot I had this in a bin somewhere. It hit me like a bolt of lightning that I remembered I had it. I have a mixer, which basically controls what's called the gain on my audio, how loud I get. So today's audio and the audio in the future is going to sound a lot better than yesterday's. Yesterday was an anomaly. It won't happen again. Like I said, the cable broke just as I was going to record yesterday's show. So I had no time to prepare. I was up against a strict deadline with personal stuff. I'm really sorry about it. I feel terrible. I almost didn't post the show. I really didn't. But it's going to sound a lot better from here on out. And I'm going to prove that by recapping the Los Angeles Rams 2020 NFL draft class. The Rams had a really good draft. I really like the players they picked. They made the decision to let Todd Gurley walk. They released him, didn't try to bring him back. Not what I would have done. I like Todd Gurley a lot. But taking Cam Akers was a great decision. Akers is a jack of all trades, master of none. He's the prototype of that. Rushed for over 1,100 yards at FSU last year and 14 touchdowns. Good frame, durable player, good vision, good patience, really fast, deceptively powerful. He's 5'10", but he's strong. Really, really strong. And he's good in the passing game. I think Sean McVay is going to be able to do a lot of interesting things with Akers. That pick made a ton of sense. And if I was McVay, I would start Akers. I feel like he has to start week 1. And if he does, take him in your fantasy football leagues. Van Jefferson was a little bit of a reach. This is a guy who I had a mid to late third round grade on. and he ended up going 57th overall at the end of the second round. The thing with Jefferson is he's just so injury prone. He has all the talent in the world. Really fast, flew off the tape at Florida. Great separation skills, great ball skills, but he had a Jones fracture in his right foot. Now, he played through it. No one knew about it. The only reason we found out about it was because it was detected at the combine. But that fracture scares me. I'd have liked it if the Rams waited to take him. In fact, he was taken 2 picks ahead of Denzel Mims. It would have made more sense for the Rams to take Mims. And if they did, ooh, man, the Jets would have been up a certain type of creek without a paddle. They made up for it, though, by taking Terrell Lewis, a guy who I had as the 59th best prospect in this draft. They took him at 84. Lewis is another guy with injury issues. He had an arm injury in 2017, tore an ACL, and he missed all of 2018. And he really underwhelmed at Alabama. Like, I expected him to come back from the injury and ball out. But he didn't. The injuries sapped a lot of his strength, which is to be expected, but it's still not a good sign. But Lewis has all the talent in the world, fantastic frame, prototypical frame for an edge rusher. 6'5", 262. The Rams needed an edge rusher. They couldn't have done much better. He's a guy who can play 3 downs. Really good against the run. Good tackler. Smart player. Good in one-on-one battles. If he can stay healthy, the Rams got a huge steal. Terrell Burgess is going to be a really good, strong safety in this league. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Really good frame, really good in run support, average intelligence, not great intelligence, not terrible intelligence. The thing is, he's a strong safety. By nature, I have to ding him. Having said that, though, I had an early to mid 3rd round grade on him. The Rams got him at the end of the 3rd round. Good for them. It made sense. I think that Burgess is going to succeed in this league. I think we're going to see him for the next 10 years. Bryson Hopkins was picked in the right spot, the end of the 4th round. I actually had him as a mid-4th rounder, so the Rams got really good value there. I liked watching him at Purdue. He was one of the better tight ends in the nation last year. Not the greatest frame in the world, but he makes up for it with his separation skills and his big play ability. He has Rob Gronkowski-like big play ability. A guy who is going to be able to move the chains and catch 20 to 25-yard passes. That's his ceiling. The thing is, though, he's such a bad blocker, and sometimes he gets a case of the dropsies. One other thing that I didn't like about that pick was that the Rams already had Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee. I just didn't see the need for another tight end. But this fit Hopkins' range. There's logic to taking a falling player. I don't hate the pick, but I don't love it either. Jordan Fuller is a jack of all trades, master of none. The thing is, though, he just has a really low ceiling. High floor, low ceiling. I actually think he can start and hold his own. But most people think he's gonna plateau as a special teamer. Or just a rotational safety. And I get it. When I watch Fuller play, I like what I see, but I don't love what I see. I see a smart player with a good frame, but he didn't jump off the tape at OSU. Not a great center fielder. And what I mean by that is he's not the kind of guy who's gonna swat balls away as a free safety. Maybe he'll contribute as a strong safety, but he's not the strongest guy in the world. I think Fuller can start and hold his own, but as far as being like a game wrecker or something, he's not that. Having said that, though, you're not looking for a game wrecker with the 199th overall pick. So, I like the pick. I really, really like that pick. Clay Johnston comes from a great football family. His father, Kent Johnston, has been a strength and conditioning coach in the NFL for a long time. His brothers, Cody and Cole, also played college football. The biggest knock on Johnston is his durability. This is a guy who's had injury concerns from 2017 on. Now, if he can stay healthy, the Rams filled a huge need. Remember, they lost Corey Littleton in free agency. They needed an inside linebacker. And Johnston has the talent to produce in the NFL. But it's the injury concerns that just scare the ever-loving mercy out of me. Having said that, though, he has a good frame, fantastic intangibles, really, really smart player, extremely coachable, which you'd expect coming from a football family. I like Johnston. I'm going to be rooting for him hard. I just don't know if he can stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. The Rams took a lot of chances on injury-prone players. Now, there's logic to that. It's boom or bust. And if they boom, watch out. The Rams are going to be back in the Super Bowl. But if they bust, you're going to see a repeat of last year. The Rams replaced Greg the Leg with Sam Sloman. Not much I can say. He's a kicker. Solid kicker. Second team All Mid-American Conference last year. I'm sure he'll do fine. Tremaine Antrim was a really good pick. He was a guy who I had as an early to mid 6th rounder. More towards the middle of the 6th round, but if he had been taken early 6th round, I wouldn't have been upset. And the Rams got him at the end of the 7th round. I don't know how they did that. Jack of all trades, master of none. The thing is, though, he's really not a jack of all trades. His run blocking is terrible. And his pass blocking needs work too, but he has a great frame. He played well at Clemson. Like, you wouldn't know he has blocking issues just from watching him at Clemson, but when you try to project it to the next level, it doesn't work. He's going to need some seasoning. I don't think he can start right away. Maybe towards the end of this coming season he can start, but that's pushing it. Having said that, though, he's a smart player, tough player. I like Antrim a lot. I really think he has the tools to succeed in the NFL. All in all, I like what the Rams did. I don't love it. Taking Terrell Lewis made perfect sense, but they didn't fill their second biggest need, which was inside linebacker, until the 7th round, and even then, Clay Johnston, there's a real chance we never see him on the football field. His injury concerns are that vast. They also didn't take a cornerback, which they really needed. They needed a guy who's going to play next to Jalen Ramsey. It's not Troy Hill. It's not David Long. I also have to ding them a little bit for taking so many boom or bust injury-prone players. I'm going to give them a B. Not a bad grade by any stretch, but not a great grade. I think a B is more than fair because they took good players. They're players who, if they stay healthy, will succeed. The thing is, though, that's a big if. Alright, it's time for this day in sports history. On this day, in 2003, the New Jersey Devils won their last Stanley Cup by beating the Anaheim Mighty Ducks in 7 games. This was right when I was really getting into hockey. I was 6 years old, and I remember this team. Like, I remember the '02 Islanders, but when I was 5 years old, I was just really an Islander fan. It wasn't until 6 that I really appreciated hockey for what it was. I mean, there were times when the Stanley Cup Finals were on, and it was like, no, I don't want to watch it. I want to watch the Yankees, because I didn't care about the teams. Then, as I got older, I know 5 to 6, it doesn't seem like that big of a jump, but it was for me. I wanted to watch this team. The Islanders had been humiliated in the playoffs that year. It was Peter Laviolette's last year as Islanders head coach. Should have been there for much longer. Thank you, Mike Milbury. They were really humiliated by the Senators. They played well in Game 1 of that series. They were okay in Game 3. They forced it into double overtime, but they had a bunch of opportunities to win that game, and they didn't. I mean, they only scored 7 goals that whole series. It was really tough. You could tell that they were disinterested, but whatever. After the Islanders were eliminated, I didn't want to stop watching hockey. You know, I had really grown to appreciate it. And the Devils were an easy team to root for. Guys like Patrick Elias, Jamie Langenbrunner, Martin Brodeur, Scott Gomez, Jeff Friesen, Joe Nieuwendyk at the end of his career, John Madden, Brian Rafalski, Scott Niedermayer, Brian Giunta, Scott Stevens. It was just a very easy team to root for. Pat Burns had that team playing the right way, and I think that year I went to the Continental Airlines Arena to watch the Islanders play the Devils. So I had a little bit of a connection that way. At least I think it was that year. I don't remember if it was or if it wasn't. But it was just a really fun team to root for. They really didn't have too much trouble in the first and second rounds, but then they ended up facing the Senators in the conference finals. That's why I brought the Senators up in the first place. They almost blew a 3-1 series lead. They only scored 2 goals in games 5 and 6 total. Then game 7 in Ottawa. They play really well. They win 3-2. Jeff Friesen with the game winner late. And they would advance to the Stanley Cup Finals to face a good Mighty Ducks team. Paul Kariya was having a great season. Jean-Sébastien Giguère had a fantastic playoffs that year, and I mean, you could see it. All throughout that playoff run, he was insane. But the Ducks were a little bit of a two-man team. The Devils were really well-rounded. That's why I was picking the Devils. I was rooting for them. I thought they were going to win. And games 1 and 2 in New Jersey, they showed why they were the better team. Back-to-back 3-0 wins. The Ducks looked terrible. Game 1 and Game 2, the Ducks only had 16 shots on net. That means that they combined for 32 shots total on Martin Brodeur. That's not going to get it done. It's why the Islanders lost to the Hurricanes. They didn't get pucks on net. If you can't get the puck on the net, you're not going to win. Especially with a goalie like Martin Brodeur. Giguère was playing okay, but not up to his standards. Game 3 was obviously a make or break game. This wasn't a team that was going to come back from 3-0. And give the Ducks credit. They played with a sense of urgency. They were peppering Brodeur all game. He faced 33 shots in that game, more than he had faced in the 2 previous games combined. The game went into overtime, and it was Ruslan Saleh who had a bad game that game. Committed 2 stupid penalties, got out on the ice in overtime, and won the game. Give the Ducks credit for having a short memory, and give the coach credit for that too, Mike Babcock. Game 4 is one of the most underrated games in hockey history. And depending on what your definition of recent hockey history is, it's one of the best games in recent hockey history. Both goalies were at the top of their game. Brodeur was great. Giguère was great. The defense was great. Both goalies only faced 26 shots, but some of those shots were really good, and they were stopping them. Then, 39 seconds into overtime, Steve Thomas, a former Devil and Islander, put his team away to tie the series at 2, and immediately the Ducks had new life. Games 5 and 6 really weren't that exciting. Giguère was terrible in Game 5. He gave up 6 goals. The Devils, all throughout that game, were the better team. Yeah, the Ducks kept it close for 40 minutes, but watching that game, you never got the sense that the Ducks had a real chance. And I've gone back and watched this series because I have such fond memories of it. But then the Ducks rebounded. Game 6. The Steves showed up. Rushmore had 2 first-period goals, and Thomas had a power play goal. The Ducks were up 3-0 after 1. Brodeur was really off his game. Jaguar was great. Ducks would win 5-2 to force a pivotal Game 7. Unfortunately for the Ducks, they ran into Martin Brodeur, who wasn't going to let his team lose a Game 7 at home. He was absolutely insane, stopped all 24 shots. Jeff Friesen had 2 goals. Mike Rupp had 3 points, a goal, and 2 assists. Scott Niedermayer had 2 assists. There were only 3 penalties in that whole game. The Devils played like a team on a mission. And they ended up winning 3-0. The Devils played like a team on a mission, and it showed. However, Jaguar was so dominant in those playoffs that he won the Conn Smythe Trophy. As the losing goalie, Jaguar won the Conn Smythe. Absolutely unreal. It's like Bobby Richardson winning the 1960 World Series MVP. I know I've talked about that before when I did the Ducks Mount Rushmore, but it's worth repeating. It's absolutely insane. That Devils team was a really fun team. Go back and watch them if you can. Just a really, really fun team to watch. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's true. Alright, it's time for another Mount Rushmore. We're on the Calgary Flames now, a really sad team. And what I mean by that is they have really good fans, but they haven't won a Stanley Cup since Lanny McDonald was there, 1989. I mean, they had one of the most underrated players in all of hockey in Jerome McGinley for his whole prime, and they just couldn't get over the hump. SB Nation did an Untitled about him. It's worth watching. The correct Mount Rushmore is Jerome McGinley, Theo Fleury, Lanny McDonald, and Mika Kiprasov. Like I said, Iginla, perennially underrated. That's what happens when you play in Western Canada. Towards the end of his career, he went cup chasing. I can't say I blame him, but he couldn't win it with the Penguins, Bruins, Avalanche, or Kings. He is, without question, one of the best players in hockey history to never win a Stanley Cup. Theo Fleury, in his rookie season, did win a Stanley Cup. He put up 200-point seasons for the Flames. Another really underrated player. You sensing a trend with playing in Calgary? Western Canada, no one sees you. I mean, outside of Flames fans, do you really seek out the Flames? I'm asking you, do you really seek out the Flames? When you're up late and you know that the Flames are playing, do you follow that game? You should, if you like hockey, but you don't. That's what happens when you play in Western Canada. It's the sad reality. Funny story about Theo Fleury. He was playing in a game, and his jersey got really bloodied. It was unusable. A fan had an autographed Theo Fleury jersey. Now, the Flames couldn't find a replacement jersey really quickly, so Fleury almost wore the fans' jersey. It got really close to that point, but they were able to find a replacement for him. Could you imagine an NHL player skating around in an autographed jersey of his? That'd be pretty cool. I wish they didn't find a jersey. Lanny McDonald, for a period of time, was the best player on the Flames. The last year of his career, 88-89, the Flames were able to put it all together. They beat the Canadiens in the Cup Finals, and McDonald scored a very important goal in that game. It would amount to the game-tying goal. The final score of Game 6 was 4-2. McDonald scored the second goal for the Flames. It was his first goal of the playoffs that year. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. The Hockey Hall of Fame does have an upper echelon of players with guys like Gordie Howe and Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr, Maurice Richard, guys like that. Lanny McDonald is in that upper echelon, just to give you a sense of how dominant he was. And Mika Kiprusoff, for a substantial period of time, was one of the most underrated goalies in the NHL. Again, playing for the Flames. He got to the Flames. He came up with the San Jose Sharks, but the Sharks didn't have a need for him because they already had Evgeny Nabokov. So the Sharks sent him to the Flames, and Kiprusoff immediately prospered. His first season with the Flames, he led the NHL in save percentage and goals against. The year after that, he led the NHL in goals against and shutouts, en route to being an all-star and winning the William Jennings and Vezina trophies. Kiprusoff was always underrated, has over 300 wins with the Flames. I almost put Al MacInnis ahead of him. Nothing against MacInnis. Best slap shot in NHL history, but I just couldn't put him ahead of Kiprusoff. Alright, so I think this audio is going to be a lot better. There is a timer, actually, that I'm looking at, so that's really good. You know, I'm going to look to see if there's a way for me to use this mixer with my regular microphone. If there isn't, no big deal, but I really like this mixer. This is really, really good. I think this is going to work. This is a really good backup plan. Again, I'm sorry for yesterday. I was trying to do a million things at once. I was trying to figure it out really quickly, and I just couldn't. I take full responsibility for it. You deserve better. I strive to give you better. It won't happen again. I promise you. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that I don't believe in meaningless finds. When I find a guy, I get so deep in his wallet, he thinks I'm in his socks.